Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I am your host as always, Professor Prime. Let's talk about math and control. But let's just be clear control is in control of the video game. And if you've never heard of that, I'm actually not surprised. It's a weird situation where it's a game that's like critically acclaimed. The people who have played it absolutely enjoyed it, and yet a lot of people still don't know about it. So if this is your first time hearing about it, seriously, go out there, play that game, play it hard, and enjoy yourself. It's freaking worth it. But yeah, so let's talk about it. Control is a game where you play as a character named Jessie Faden, and she's on a search for her brother, and this leads her to a facility known as the Federal Bureau of Control. And throughout the course of the game, things get weird. They get super weird. It's an understatement. And I will try to not get too far into the spoilers, but there probably will be some spoilers in here, so just give me that heads up. But the whole big thing with the game is it's a third person shooter that also deals with psychic powers. And that's really cool to me. It reminds me of PsyOps, the Mindgate Conspiracy, a game from the mid 2000s, if you've never heard of it, where it was that similar premise. And while that game was like fun in its own right, like it was a blast, I feel like Control was even better. And it became one of my favorite games pretty easily. Like it's fun. It's freaking fun. And like I enjoy the story as well. But that being said, before I get too deep into it, again, there are going to be some spoilers ahead. So if you haven't played it and you don't want any spoilers, then you shouldn't watch this video until after you're done. If you're currently playing it, same deal. Like I said, I'll try to be good with that, but there are going to be some spoilers. I'd be, you know, safe about it. With that being mine, again, spoilers ahead. Let's do this. So here's how this is going to go. I'm going to talk about control and how math plays a role in that, right? Like how it's used in the gameplay, how it's used to help tell the story. Then, I'll also talk about things on the meta level, like what goes into making this sort of game, right? What about the math in that? What about the math and getting it out there, right? And throughout all of it, I will be talking about my experience with it, right? And some of the meta elements will be kind of be talked about throughout as they come up naturally, and then more at a particular point. So again, spoilers ahead. Let's go. So Control is an interesting game that honestly, I came across it accidentally. I happened to be searching games on the PlayStation Store, and I came across a section where they were talking about like hidden gems, and I feel like that's accurate here. So Control was one of the games that I got there after like reading the description. It sounded really cool, because it's pretty much what I was saying earlier in this video, and I looked into it a little bit without like getting any spoilers, and I'm like, all right, I can take this risk. Because here's the thing, right? Like it wasn't that expensive. It was like 20 something, I think. I think at the time when I got it, it was like 20 something dollars. Because it was on sale. Because they had that hidden gem sale going on. And the thing is, I got like the complete edition. So even though the first expansion and the second expansion, they didn't come out at that time. It gave me access to them when they did, and I have played both of those. And I gotta say, the whole game is amazing. The first expansion is pretty much a game within itself, and though the second expansion wasn't as long, it's still a pretty nice experience, and it sets up that world of Control with another world that Remedy, like the developers of the game, have made. Two, if you count kind of a cameo Easter egg sort of thing. But yeah, so let's get into it. So Control is a game where it has an interesting world, it has an interesting story, and it has amazing gameplay. And everything does tie together pretty well. With the focus being on the gameplay, it's just really freaking fun. Like if you were talking about it as a shooter, it'd still be fun, but like the psychic parts add it to another level, right? I'm sorry, they take it to another level. So here's the deal, right? Like, so let's talk about it. So it's a third person shooter, and you're going around, you're exploring the facilities, you're finding out more about the world, and as you're doing that, right, you're taking on opponents. And you get infinite ammo for the equipment that you're working with, and you get power ups, upgrades, and all that good stuff. And there's math and all of that. And with the weapon that you're carrying in the game, while it is infinite ammo, you still have to reload. So you have to be strategic, but you don't have to worry about like running out of ammo for good. They just take that right out the window, which is cool. Because while running out of ammo is an issue in some other games, and it does make you be more strategic with how you use it. It's not like you lack strategy here, because you do still have to remember that each weapon has different load times and how you want to play with that, and then it's like you can't have every configuration at once. So you're like, well, which two forms of this weapon do I want to carry into battle, right? And so there's like math and all of that. And then there's the psychic powers, right? Not only are they fun, but you could get strategic with them, especially as you're developing them over time, because you get a fair amount of offensive psychic abilities, like you get telekinesis, and that's fun. You pretty much get your force push, which is just an extension of like the telekinesis. At the end of the day, you get some defensive capabilities like creating some armor, but you could also use your telekinesis to grab something, or grab a person and use them as a shield. You could also mind control. Later down the line, you develop flight. It's limited because once you run out of your psychic energy, you got to take a break, but it's pretty forgiving in terms of refilling that gauge. So you can pretty much, levitate your way around the place, just flying around at a certain point in the game, and it's freaking awesome. And so you're using all these tools at your arsenal, and even though like Jessie, she is like very very powerful, there's never a point in the game where you felt like it was too easy. No, if anything, it's quite the opposite. Some parts are really challenging. Now, there are cheat codes that you can enter later on, but I don't recommend using those until you beat the game to like get the full experience of how challenging it is, and just like to strategize. But people game differently, so no judgment here. Like if you do decide to use those cheat codes, but I liked going through it without that, and then like once I beat the game, using them to do different things. That being said, so there's a lot of math as far as the combat is concerned, because it's like anywhere from you know load times to like your positioning between your opponents, the damage that you're doing, the damage that you're taking, your offensive capabilities, your defensive capabilities, and once you're using like the levitation ability, like using that to do different things, and like you can also like use your telekinesis while you're doing that, but you have to have a good sense of like physics and geometry when you're doing all of this. So there's a lot of physics and a lot of geometry as far as the motions in these games and the world that you're in, and things just get so crazy and they get wonky. And Control is a sort of game where it looks at reality and it's like, nah, there's way more to it. So traditional physics, they might fail you on some level, but at the same time, like the game definitely has a sense of physics, so you can get a good sense of how you work within that world. And there's so much math into that, and then also like it's not just emotion, of course. It's just like the force of your attacks, the force of their attacks. Like what does that do to your character? How do you interact with this? How do you interact with that? How do things interact with each other? And then there's the idea that you're going through the game and you're collecting more forms of your weapon. You're collecting different mods for that weapon, and not only are you restricted to carrying two forms of your weapon into battle, although you can change them on the fly, which is great. But each of those have three mods, and like there's a lot of math in what the mods do, because like, oh well, maybe this gives you a higher percentage of damage as far as like headshots are concerned, or maybe this just increases your attack power more. Um, Either way, like there's different things and there's trade-offs to using everything, and so there's a lot of math and just how the combat goes and how it flows. And then as you're like getting the collectibles, they are worth getting because they help flesh out the lore in the game, and there's a lot of cool side quests that you can go on that really flesh out that world, and they get weird and they get wonky. And let's talk about the weirdness. Let's get into it. Control is a beautifully weird game that just It just says screw it. Let's just have fun. So one of the biggest things of the game is that you deal with alternate realities. You deal with like the astral plane at different points in it. You know, you talk to strange creatures. You deal with strange things, and you're fighting off, um, you know, these creatures that they're taking people over. So throughout the game, you're just like you're fighting all this, and you're keeping track of it, and it's amazing. And there's a lot of math in all of that, and just like going to the different worlds and seeing how like the physics of those worlds flow, seeing how weird things can get. Like, and some cases you're fighting different devices, like and that's crazy. Or like different devices do different things, and like the setting that you're in might change, and you have to adjust. And it's just like it's wild, it's crazy, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. One of the missions that really stuck out for me was there's this I think it was an arcade machine. Yeah, I think there was like an arcade machine that you could fight, and that was wild. Um, and there's also a point where I think it might have been linked to that arcade machine, or maybe I'm just thinking that, but I think it might have been. But either way, there's this one segment of the game where it's this train mission where like you have to go from like car to car and going down the tracks, and it's got this '80s soundtrack going, and it's just like it's freaking awesome. It's freaking glorious. And also this game likes the '80s. It likes metal. It likes synth. And I'm all for it. And the music, it really sets the tone, it sets the mood, and it can affect your gameplay. There's math in all of that and how it works and how it functions. And I just had an absolute blast with Control. And so, yeah. So there's math and all that. And let's talk about like the math that it takes to just make that game. So with Control, like at first glance, right? Like it's a regular building, and then there's a lot of math that goes into constructing that building, constructing that room, or sorry, constructing the rooms in the building. There's math that goes into how Jesse is moving throughout the game, and how you're controlling Jesse and taking her to this place and that place, and how you interact with different enemies and different items. But this is where it gets kind of crazy, right? Because yes, there's math and all that, but if they had just stopped there, honestly, still would have been a fun experience. But what really sets it apart from a lot of other games is like the level of weird that goes into it, because they go into different dimensions and different pockets of reality, and they have to design math for all of those spaces and what you're able to do in all those spaces. And that's crazy to me. That's beautiful to me. So math goes into like the base setting where you're at, but it also goes into all of the other parts of of that world. And what really gets crazy is, right, like, so you're in a building, right? You're in a singular building throughout the entire game, but it has so many different ways to get to other dimensions, and it just seems to extend forever and into infinity. And it's all crazy, and there's all math in that. So and then, right, so there's math into designing the environments and how a player goes through those environments. There's a lot of like physics. There's a lot of geometry. There's a lot of coding that goes into it. A lot of comp sci, and there's math in all of that. And I think that's amazing to me. And then you got to figure, right, with the way gaming is, there's like there could be literally hundreds of people on a team that all have to work together, that have to figure out the logistics of making this game work and making it work well. They have to have a functioning game, a cohesive game, and there's so much math that goes into all that. There's so much time, so much money. People are sacrificing so much to make that work. And I think that's crazy. That's awesome. But like here, right, they clearly believed in the game, and it paid off in a big way. Because again, even though a lot of people don't know about it, more people are figuring it out and going to the game and like having a blast with it. Um, and then what about you as a player? What are you getting out of this game, right? Like, because it's like, well, you have to pay for a game, so it's like, is it worth it? And for me personally, I like to get my bang for my buck. I like the games to like involve a lot of different things, right? I like there to be the massive world, but they can't just be massive worlds. They have to be massive worlds where you're doing stuff in them, right? That like are fun. And I want to get hours upon hours upon hours of entertainment. And I feel like in the case of Control, like I think I paid about, like I said, $30 for it, and I got like the expansion pack one and the expansion pack two that go with it. I was able to like still have that access even though they weren't done at the time. And so when the time came, I had already beat Control, and I still got to play those expansions. like I got to spread that out. So like I revisited Control several times, and like it was great to do that. And I felt like I got my bang for my buck because I got that complete edition on sale, and I think it was a risk that paid off. And whenever we're spending money on anything, we do have to be cautious. It's like, hey, we're risking our money. What are we getting for the reward? And I feel like this paid off in a big way. And not only did I get like a pretty expansive world, I got in a pretty expansive world that had worlds within worlds, different dimensions, different creatures, amazing and unique boss fights. I got a lot out of this game. So Control to me was a game that was fun, and there's a lot of math that goes into it. And of course, the game did sell. There's a lot of money in that. When a studio puts a game together, right, there's a lot of time and a lot of money that goes into it. So it's in their best interest to create something that's actually going to be good, that's going to get people talking. And I think that's worth it to consider when you're making a game if you ever want to do that. There's a lot of math that goes into it, and that isn't a bad thing. And just to talk about my opinions about Control for a little bit, because I talked about like the math that goes into that. As you could tell by this point, I had an absolute blast with Control. I had it a blast when I played it the first time, which I was playing that for like a good month. I had a blast when I went to the expansion pack 1. I had a blast when I would later come back to expansion pack 2. That game was brilliant, and you could tell that the creators had fun creating this world and creating this character that they knew that you would have fun interacting with, and it shows. And I think, at this point, while you don't have to make a game fun because you know that people are going to buy it, I think it's in like a developer's best interest to make a game fun. I think a game should be fun, and I think there's a tangible reward for making a game fun, for taking chances, for making it unique. Because I feel like it can't always be about the money, right? But if it is all about the money for these companies and these people out there, then it's like it's still in their best interest to make a fun game, to make a beautiful game, to make something that's interesting that people are going to talk about because it puts more money in their pockets. So no matter how you come at it, whether it's from an artistic standpoint or financial one, I really do believe it's in a company's best interest to make a game that's going to be fun, beautiful, and work well. And Control definitely fits the bill. So if you haven't played Control, do yourself a favor. Play Control. Have fun with it. And if you have, talk to me about it. I know almost no one who has played this game, so I am all for talking about how incredible it is. And if somehow you didn't find it incredible, let me know why. But I would be willing to bet that you did find it incredible. So yeah, let's talk about it. And if you do play it after watching this, feel free to share your opinions with me as well. Professor Prime out.